Alright, so, as I said, I'm going to be doing now my top 10 favorite Spider-Man villains. Now, one thing I should mention is that this list is going to be very unique, and yes, it is going to have a lot of classic... It's going to be like all classic villains that we all know, because, let's face it, the classic Spider-Man villains are a lot cooler than the new ones they made for Brand New Day. Now, there is, like I said, this is my list and my rules, and just because they're lower on the list doesn't mean I think them any less of a villain. I mean, these 10 are like the best of the best. I consider them all great villains. Just because they're one number lower than the other doesn't mean I don't hate them. I love them. I just have other reasons why the other one's higher. But again, that's why I like them. Starting off at number 10 is a villain that probably one of Spider-Man's first villains he ever fought, and that's Adrian Toomes, the Vulture. Now, the reason why I like the Vulture is because he proves that just because you're old doesn't mean you can kick some ass. Toomes is a villain who can go blow for blow with Spider-Man, and is actually, in recent comics, he was brought back, and he was brought back in the recent comics, especially in Slott's run, and he's basically, kind of like a crime boss. He's kind of like the Penguin. But the Vulture, Adrian Toomes, that suit gives him the ability to not only fly, but also, enhances his strength. And personally, I like the black costume. That's why I wanted to use this picture. I really like the black and red costume. But there have been a lot of cool stories involving the Vulture. I remember one where the Vulture was dying of cancer because the suit he was wearing, and he was kind of taking care of some old debts. One of them being he tried to apologize to Aunt May for killing a man she was seeing. She was dating a man, and he accidentally killed him. So he tried to apologize to her, and in doing so, he ended up he actually got crazy and kidnapped her. He kidnapped her and basically you're gonna forgive me either way or not. I don't want that on my conscience before I die. And of course, Spider-Man stops him. It's a really good 3-part story, and I believe in the 90s run of Spectacular Spider-Man comics, or was it just the Spider-Man title? It was one of those, but it was back in the 90s. It's a cool little 3-part story. Just Vulture on the edge, just his suit, because the suit was giving him, he had cancer, he was basically using full power on his suit, and he was like, I'm gonna go all out, kill everybody. But yeah, what more can I say about... Because a lot of people diss Vulture because he's old. I've never once thought, just because he's old doesn't make him any less of a threat. That's why I like him so much. That's why I like Toomes so much as a villain. He's that, just because he's old doesn't mean he's any less of a threat. And a lot of people don't take him seriously, which I wish weren't the case. But anyway, moving on to number 9. Now, number 9 is another villain that Spider-Man one of his other villains that he first encountered in his early career. A villain who, is pretty close to him. A villain that is very, has very close ties to, Peter Parker. This is a villain that is actually going to be in the Amazing Spider-Man movie, and I can't wait to see his full appearance. And, you guys know who I'm talking about. And that's Dr. Curt Connors, a.k.a. the Lizard. Now, the Lizard is such a unique character. He's so much like he's kind of like Man-Bat in some aspects, but I like the Lizard over Man-Bat, because here's a guy who, I always like what they do with Lizard, no matter what they do, unless they where there were a couple comics where they did that to Lizard, where they gave him wings, and he could fly and stuff. He had, these frills under his wing. He had, these skin frills under his arms that he could fly and glide with. That was kind of weird. But the Lizard is always such an interesting villain, especially, the fact that he's a friend of Peter Parker, just makes it a little more personal. Peter has to hold back when he's fighting the Lizard. Every time he's like, I'm trying to help this guy, I can't hurt him too much, or I might hurt, Dr. Connors. So, that's what makes Lizard such a unique character. And, there always is, for every one of Spider-Man's villains, more so than even the Batman villains, the Spider-Man villains always have, like, they have a chance to be good and whatnot, but there's always a punch-in-the-gut moment for every one of the Spider-Man villains. There's some for the Batman villains and a lot of other rogues out there, but it happens so much more to the Spider-Man villains. There's always those moments where you feel so sympathetic for a majority of the Spider-Man villains. There's always that one punch-in-the-gut moment. And that punch... And Lizard's biggest punch-in-the-gut moment for me was when the Lizard devoured Kurt's son, Billy. That was a breaking point for Kurt Connors. That was like, oh, man. Like I said, there's always, especially for the classic Spider-Man villains, there's always a punch-in-the-gut moment. More than that, the Lizard I always liked. There's never been a time where I haven't liked the Lizard, whether he be a wild, savage creature or have intelligence and want to conquer Earth and make everyone a lizard. I always find it interesting no matter what they do with Lizard. So, yeah. But moving on now to number 8. Number 8 is a villain that I actually wanted to see in Spider-Man, in Amazing Spider-Man. This was a villain who I thought could be a cool mirror aspect to Peter's early life as Spider-Man in the Amazing Spider-Man movie, and be a cool first villain for him to fight. This is also another villain that Spider-Man encountered early on in his career, and that villain is Max Dillon, aka Electro. Electro is a villain who, I've always had like a spot for Max. Max had this cool superpower. It's so funny. He has actually a lot of untapped potential in him. I mean, hell, this guy actually absorbed all the electricity in New York and blacked it out. Like, all of New York blacked out. Nothing. And he has all this godlike power, and all he's reduced to, all he does really is, he's either working for somebody or he's robbing banks. And I actually love his costume. I know I'm using a picture from him from the Gauntlet, but I was kind of in a rush to do this video, so I just picked that. But yeah, I love the design of Electro's costume. This is Electro is just another guy like. Spider-Man has he's a good anti-Spider-Man in some ways. I mean that because he was given his powers by accident. He was down on his luck, given his power by accident, and he uses them in kind to mirror Peter's way of using his abilities, and he just uses them for personal gain and, money. That's what, another reason why I thought, he could have worked as a villain in Amazing Spider-Man, was because he could have been a cool aspect to, mirror Peter's evolution into becoming Spider-Man. It'd be a cool way to show how Max would have become Electro. And the other fact is because because Spider-Man's rogues are so unique, there are a lot of animal-type villains in his rogues gallery, but Electro's just a walking electric charge. You try to punch him, you're gonna get shocked, you're gonna lose the use of that arm. I remember one time when Spider-Man punched him, and he lost all the feeling in his arm for about an hour. I thought that was pretty cool. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on now to number 7. Now, number 7 and number 6 and 7. The reason why they're at these two villains are at the numbers they are is kind of because of overexposure. And that kind of, and again, this is my list, my rules, and, the fact that just because they're on these numbered on the list doesn't mean I don't think them any less of a villain. But but like again, top 10 best of the best. And starting at number 7 is none other than Cletus Cassidy, aka Carnage. Now, like I said, Carnage and the same as number 6. Both these villains are the reason why they're so low. They're at this point of the list is because overexposure. They're everywhere. Whenever someone thinks of a Spider-Man movie, it's like, oh, why don't we get Venom and Carnage in here? Venom and Carnage are the only villains Spider-Man needs. That kind of bothers me. Because every villain Spider-Man has a very rich background to him or her, no matter what the villains are. But I give a lot of credit to Carnage because this is a guy, especially Maximum Carnage, which is probably one of my all-time favorite Spider-Man story. At least one of my all-time favorite Spider-Man stories. But Carnage, the reason why Carnage is on this list is because he's unpredictable. He's like a force of nature. This guy, there is no... It's not like with the Joker, who has, like, some rhyme or reason why he's killing people. The Joker has, like, some inane plan in his mind, somewhere, somehow. Carnage has no plan. He's unpredictable. You know, this is a guy who actually, like... When he took New York hostage in some ways, he drove everyone crazy in New York. There was no plan for that. He actually said, I don't do plans. I just do. Like... during Maximum Carnage, when he and his crew slaughtered a majority of New York and drove New York insane, he didn't have a plan for that. That wasn't his goal. He was just there to kill. And that's what makes him so dangerous, because unlike that, people compare Carnage to Joker. I kind of disagree, because Carnage is not the Joker. Carnage has no plan. He's just there. He's just there. He's just evil. There is blackness in his heart. In fact, during a crossover with Batman, Batman actually said, you know, this guy is nothing like I've ever encountered. And, you know, everyone has to go to Spider-Man to deal with Carnage, especially now in Carnage USA, which I think is kind of interesting. I can't wait to pick that up in trade. But yeah, again, the reason why he's at number 7 is, again, overexposure. But again, that doesn't make him any less of a villain in my eyes. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on to number 6. Now, number 6 is a villain who's probably like, when you think Spider-Man, you think this villain. No matter who you are, whether you've seen the movies or read the comics, everyone who is a Spider-Man fan, when they say when you say villains to them, they always think of this guy, no matter who they are. And again, just because he's at number 6 doesn't make him any less of a villain in my eyes. The reason why I keep repeating myself, and I know a lot of people say I repeat myself, is because I have to drive that point across. Because some people don't listen. But, yeah, you're probably wondering who the villain is at number 6. So, at number 6 is a villain we all know as Eddie Brock, Venom. So, Venom. Venom is probably a very... While he is at number 6, again, the same thing I had with Carnage, and I explained this before, the reason why he's at number 6 is because of overexposure. In the 90s, Marvel had this insane idea to overexpose Venom, and it's kind of like Todd McFarlane's plan. It was actually Todd McFarlane's plan to, you know, basically say, we're going to make Venom awesome and put him everywhere. I guarantee you, in the 90s, Venom was in every Marvel comic. In fact, there's an issue of Iron Man he's in. There's also an issue of... There's like 3 issues of X-Men he's in. He's in one of every X-Men title. He was more... During the 90s, Venom was more overexposed than Deadpool is now. Insane, I know. But that doesn't make him any... But I will admit, Venom is an awesome villain. Venom is just the... First off, Spider-Man can't see him coming. I think that's amazing with the symbiote. And what's also cool is that Eddie Brock is again, another shadow of Spider-Man. He's another aspect of, like, Peter Parker. Kind of like a lot of the Spider-Man villains are. He is the anti-Spider-Man in more ways than one, you could say. Now, Venom, when he first appeared in issue 3, when Venom made his official appearance, like, when he came out of the shadows and all that, in issue 300, that felt like a horror movie. I guarantee you, that felt like an 80s slasher film, which is kind of appropriate because Venom did come out in the 80s. But yeah, but Venom has gone through. I mean, Eddie Brock, the character of Eddie Brock, has gone through major changes throughout. He's a very well-developed character. I'm not gonna lie. He's gone from Venom to anti-Venom to getting cancer to losing the cancer. You know. And now he's lost the anti-Venom suit, so I can only imagine what they're going to do with Eddie Brock now. And I love Flash Thompson as Venom. He's no Eddie Brock, but I give a lot of credit to Flash. I give a lot of credit to Flash Thompson and what Rick Remender's doing with him as Venom. But yeah, like I said, my list, my rules. Hope you guys have enjoyed the list. So stay tuned for my top 5. See you then. Bye.